Okay, Tom, on the question of human behavior, how much do you think that our behavior is inherent and fixed, and how much do you think that human behavior can be changed?
Ah, yeah, that's a very interesting question, which occupies a lot of my time actually. And my thought, I'm surprised how often I come back to it. Some people contend that an extraordinary event in life, such as being at war, stuck in a cable car for 48 hours and almost dying, some unequivocal event can have lasting effects. I think few would doubt that those who came out of Auschwitz were changed forever through that terrible and dramatic experience. The question is, on a much less dramatic scale, are there events in life that that change us for good? I think let me take a theoretical approach to this. From a Freudian perspective, a psychoanalytic perspective, we're essentially prisoners of the past, of our childhood. The experiences that molded us as we were children then have long ramifications in life. And you can try through years and years of therapy and consciousness raising to become aware of the trauma that existed in the past and to some degree change. But let's face it, the results of psychoanalytic treatment are not very dramatic. And if one can adapt maybe 30% improvement, you're already doing pretty well. So from a psychoanalytic perspective, I'd say it's very deterministic and we're prisoners of our past. If we look from a biological or sociobiological perspective, which is essentially a genetic one, and the impact of genes on direct behavior and on social behavior, then clearly it's highly deterministic because we're programmed in advance. So, for example, if somebody has an unusually high sexual drive or has an extraordinary sense of curiosity or a proclivity for long-distance sports, this is something that can't be changed by definition because the blueprint of genes, the very goal is to transmit it without change to future generations. However, if we venture into a social psychology perspective, such as many politicians, it might surprise, Hitler, Marx, and many politicians, they held that we are molded by our environment. So education, the parental influence, and what happens in society basically determine the human condition. This is a school of thought that was very big in the 70s and the 1980s, and it's been mitigated a little bit because there are many discoveries in the fields of genetic which have confirmed that suicide has a strong genetic component, alcoholism, so the more we discover in genes, the more it offsets that. Now I'm going to bring my emphasis to a school of thought which I find interesting called the phenomenological approach to human behavior. And that states basically, this is in the vein of a lot of schools of psychology that came from the United States, sort of self-actualizing psychology that started in the 1960s with Abraham Maslow and the hierarchy of needs. And what this states basically is that humans have a capacity for change because they have a sense of agency and they can act on themselves, and through thinking about things they can then decide and take action. In fact, the etymology of to decide comes from decidere Latin, which means to shut off any other option. So according to this perspective, if you're aware of the issues and you fix goals clearly in the future, you can then take a decision, and that decision then determines your trajectory. And if you say, I am no longer going to be weak, I'm no longer going to let other people step on me. For women, I'm no longer going to let men, for example, be incorrect in their attitude towards me, you can then literally change your trajectory. The only caveat with this particular perspective is when taken too far, it can give people false hope that by reading one pop psychology book or attending one seminar or going to the Firewalk experience with Tony Robbins, that they will come back a changed person. And the weight of experience and the consensus of experts in mental health is that you have to be careful. To operate change is difficult, it takes time. There's one theory which talks about, in French, it's parallélisme des formes, which means that things have to be parallel or symmetrical. And it means if for 30 years a problem was bred into you through your education, it's not going to disappear. It might take a similar amount of time or a long time to go away. So like most things, if we take all these perspectives and we put them together, the truth lies somewhere probably in between, in a vortex of all of them coming together. Genes play a role, education plays a role, and the capacity and the belief to affect change also does. So that would be my short answer.